They stood in my living room laughing as they divided up my savings. "She can't afford a lawyer," my son-in-law smirked. "Just drain it all." What they didn't know was that I'd already made one phone call. By sunrise, their accounts were frozen solid. And when my phone started ringing off the hook, I let every single call go to voicemail. "My name is Diane, and I'm 72 years old. Before I tell you what happened, I want to know, where are you watching this from? Drop your city and state in the comments. I love knowing where my stories reach. Now, settle in, because what I'm about to share will show you that age doesn't mean weakness, and silence doesn't mean surrender. I spent 43 years as a registered nurse at St. Michael's Hospital in Philadelphia. My husband Paul and I raised 3 children in a modest 2-story house in the suburbs, the kind with a front porch where we'd sit on summer evenings watching the neighborhood kids play. Paul was a contractor, and together we built a comfortable life, not wealthy, but secure. We saved carefully, invested modestly in CDs and bonds, nothing fancy. We were the couple who brought casseroles to sick neighbors and never missed a single school play or baseball game. When Paul passed away 6 years ago from a sudden heart attack, it felt like the ground had opened beneath me. One morning, he was laughing over coffee, complaining about a difficult client, and by afternoon, he was gone. 46 years of marriage ended in a hospital corridor while a young doctor stammered through condolences. I remember thinking how strange it was that I'd worked in that hospital for decades, had delivered that same speech to countless families, and now I was on the receiving end. The grief was crushing. But I'm not the type to crumble completely. My mother raised me to believe that falling apart was a luxury we couldn't afford. So I grieved privately. I adjusted to the echo of an empty house, and I kept living. I had Paul's life insurance, our retirement savings, and the house paid off years ago. Financially, I was stable. Emotionally, I was managing. My daughter Jennifer had always been my middle child, the one who seemed to need extra attention. She'd struggled through 2 difficult divorces before meeting Craig, and I'd been genuinely happy when she remarried 8 years ago. Craig seemed successful. He worked in finance, drove a nice car, wore expensive suits. At family dinners, he'd talk about market trends and investment portfolios with confidence that made him sound knowledgeable. I never quite understood what his actual job was. Whenever I'd ask specifics, he'd wave his hand dismissively and say things like, "I manage diversified asset portfolios for high net worth individuals." It sounded impressive. I assumed that meant he was good at his job. After Paul died, Jennifer started calling more frequently. At first, I welcomed it. A widow needs family, needs to feel connected. She'd stop by on weekends, bring takeout, help me organize Paul's belongings. It felt like we were growing closer. I should have paid more attention to the questions she was asking. How much did Dad leave you? Where do you keep important documents? Have you thought about updating your will? About 2 years ago, over coffee at my kitchen table, Jennifer broached the subject more directly. "Mom, you really need to get your affairs in order. You're not getting any younger, and if something happened to you, we'd have no idea how to handle your finances." The logic seemed sound. I was 70, recently widowed, and yes, something could happen. So when she suggested meeting with an attorney, Craig knew I agreed. The attorney's name was Richard Holloway, and his office was in a strip mall near the highway, which should have been my first red flag. Successful attorneys don't usually practice between a nail salon and a tax preparation service. Richard was smooth-talking, probably in his late 50s, with 2 white teeth and a golf tan. He greeted Craig like an old friend, with back slaps and inside jokes. The meeting happened fast. Too fast. Richard presented me with stack after stack of documents. Power of attorney forms, healthcare directives, updated beneficiary designations. He explained each one in rapid-fire legal language that made my head spin. "Mrs. Patterson, this durable power of attorney simply allows Jennifer and Craig to help manage your finances if you become incapacitated," he'd said, sliding the paper across his desk. "Standard estate planning. You'd want someone you trust handling things if, God forbid, you had a stroke or developed dementia." When I tried to slow down, to read more carefully, he'd pat my hand condescendingly. "I know legal language can be confusing. That's why you have family here to help. This is all for your protection." Craig nodded vigorously. Diane, we just want to make sure you're taken care of. That's all this is. I signed everything. Looking back now, I can see how expertly they manipulated the situation. They made me feel like asking questions meant I didn't trust my own daughter. They made me feel stupid for not understanding legal jargon. They made me feel like protecting myself was somehow an insult to family loyalty. For the next year, life continued normally. I volunteered at St. Luke's Church, organizing the food pantry every Tuesday. I met my friend Martha for lunch at the diner every Thursday. I tended my garden. Paul's roses were finally thriving after years of struggling. Jennifer and Craig visited regularly, always asking about my health, whether I needed help with anything. Their concern seemed genuine. I felt grateful to have a daughter who cared. Then, about 6 months ago, something made me check my bank statement more carefully than usual. I can't even remember what triggered it. Maybe just a nurse's instinct that something was off. That's when I saw them. Small withdrawals I hadn't made. $500 here, $800 there, $1,200 the month before. Nothing dramatic enough to immediately alarm me, but consistent enough to form a pattern. I called the bank the next morning, my hands shaking as I pressed the numbers. The customer service representative pulled up my account. Yes, Mrs. Patterson, I see those transactions. They were authorized through a power of attorney. Your son-in-law, Craig Brennan, initiated them. My throat went dry. I didn't authorize any withdrawals. According to our records, Mr. Brennan has durable power of attorney over your accounts. Those documents were filed with us 14 months ago. 14 months. Right after that meeting with Richard Holloway. I confronted Jennifer the next time she visited, which happened to be that same afternoon. She'd called saying she was just stopping by to check on me. She arrived with bakery cookies and a bright smile that now looked predatory. "Sweetheart, I need to talk to you about something," I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "I'm seeing withdrawals from my accounts that I didn't make. Do you know anything about this?" She barely glanced up from her phone, scrolling through something with apparent disinterest. "Oh, Mom, don't worry about that. Craig's been helping manage your investments, moving money around to get you better returns, optimizing your portfolio. You signed the papers, remember? You gave us permission." The casual dismissal in her voice was like a slap. This wasn't my attentive, concerned daughter. This was someone irritated by having to explain herself. "Jennifer, I gave permission to help if I became incapacitated. I'm not incapacitated. I'm perfectly capable of managing my own money." Craig walked in from the kitchen then, carrying a glass of my iced tea like he owned the place. His expression was harder than I'd ever seen it, with none of the usual pretense of warmth. "Diane, let's be real here. You're 72 years old. No offense, but you're not exactly sharp enough anymore to handle complex financial matters. Jennifer and I are protecting you from yourself, from making poor decisions. You should be grateful we're taking this burden off your shoulders." Grateful. That word landed like a stone in my stomach. They wanted gratitude for stealing from me. I didn't argue. Over 7 decades of life, I've learned that sometimes the smartest response is no response. Let people underestimate you. Let them think their manipulation worked. So I nodded vaguely, put on a confused expression, and murmured something about forgetting things lately. I saw relief flash across Craig's face. Jennifer relaxed back into her phone. They thought they'd won. They thought I was just another confused old woman who'd accept whatever they told me. They had no idea who they were dealing with. The moment their car pulled out of my driveway, I grabbed my purse and keys and drove straight to my bank. My hands were trembling. So badly I could barely grip the steering wheel. The branch manager, Patricia Chen, a kind woman who'd helped me refinance my mortgage years ago, saw my face and immediately ushered me into her office. "Mrs. Patterson, what's wrong?" "I need to see all my accounts. Everything. Every transaction for the past 2 years." Patricia's fingers flew across her keyboard. Then her face went pale. "Oh my God." She turned the monitor toward me. The spreadsheet showed withdrawal after withdrawal after withdrawal. They started small, 300, 500, but they'd grown bolder. Recent withdrawals were $2,000, $3,500, $4,000, all authorized by Craig's power of attorney, all transferred to accounts in his name. "How much total?" I whispered. Patricia's voice was gentle. Mrs. Patterson, over the past 14 months, there have been withdrawals totaling $87,430. The room tilted. $87,000, almost $90,000. That was most of what Paul and I had saved over 4 decades. That was my security, my independence, my future. Patricia, I said, fighting to keep my voice steady, I never approved this. This is theft. Her expression was pained. I understand, I do. But according to our records and the legal documents on file, your son-in-law has durable power of attorney. Under banking law, these withdrawals are technically legal. If you want to contest this, you'd need to prove he's acting against your interests or misusing his authority, and that requires a lawyer, I finished bitterly. An expensive lawyer. She nodded. I'm so sorry. If there's anything else I can do, there wasn't. Not really. I thanked her and left, sitting in my car in the parking lot for 20 minutes, just trying to process what had happened. My own daughter, the child I'd carried for 9 months, nursed through colic, taught to ride a bike, helped through her divorces, supported through every hardship. She was stealing from me. Systematically. Deliberately. That evening, my phone rang. Jennifer's cheerful voice came through, so sweet it made me nauseous. Hey, Mom, just checking in. How was your day? Fine, I said flatly. Good. Listen, Craig and I have been talking, and we think it might be time to have a serious conversation about the house. It's a lot for you to maintain. The yard work, the repairs, the property taxes. We were thinking maybe it's time to consider downsizing. Sell the house, move you into a nice assisted living facility. The equity would fund your care, and you wouldn't have to worry about anything. My house. The home Paul literally built with his own hands, board by board. The house where we'd raised 3 children, celebrated Christmas mornings, hosted graduation parties and birthday dinners. The house filled with 40 years of memories in every corner. I'm not interested in selling, I said, my voice hard. There was a pause. Then I heard Craig in the background, his voice muffled but clear enough. Just keep pushing. She'll cave eventually. They all do. They all do. How many elderly people had they done this to? Was I just another mark? That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep. Paul's picture sat on my nightstand, his smile forever frozen at age 66 before the heart attack stole him from me. What would Paul do in this situation? He'd fight. Paul never backed down from injustice, never let anyone push him around. He'd stood up to corrupt building inspectors, dishonest suppliers, clients who tried to cheat him. He fought for what was right. I had to do the same. The next morning, I called Martha. We'd been nurses together for 30 years, and if there was anyone I trusted, absolutely, it was her. I told her everything, the power of attorney, the withdrawals, Jennifer's betrayal. My voice broke several times, but I pushed through. Martha was silent for a long moment. Then she said, Diane, my nephew Thomas is a partner at Keller, Morrison and Associates. They're one of the best firms in Pennsylvania. I'm calling him right now. Martha, I can't afford... You can't afford not to. Trust me. Let me make the call. 2 days later, I sat in a gleaming conference room 40 stories above downtown Philadelphia. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, and the furniture probably cost more than my car. Thomas Keller was about 45 with sharp eyes and the kind of calm, controlled presence that comes from knowing you're very good at what you do. He wore an immaculate charcoal suit and listened to my entire story without interrupting, taking notes on a yellow legal pad. When I finished, he set down his pen and looked at me directly. Mrs. Patterson, what's been done to you is called financial exploitation of an elderly person. In Pennsylvania, it's not just a civil matter, it's a crime. You could press criminal charges if you wanted. More than that, what your daughter and son-in-law did is morally reprehensible. But here's what you need to know up front. Stopping this and recovering your money will require aggressive legal action. Fast, decisive, and expensive. My retainer is $15,000, and that's just a start. $15,000. With $87,000 already stolen, I had maybe $40,000 left in accessible accounts. Thomas must have read my expression because he held up his hand. Let me finish. Given the clear evidence of exploitation and the strong likelihood of not just recovering your funds, but also obtaining significant damages, I'm willing to work on a modified contingency arrangement. You pay half the retainer now, $7,500. We pursue full restitution of every penny they took, plus damages, plus all my legal fees. When we win, and Mrs. Patterson, I promise you we will win, Craig and Jennifer will pay for everything, every hour I bill, every court filing, every cent of your money they stole, plus penalties for elder abuse. When we win. Those 3 words changed everything. What do I need to do? I asked. Write me a check for $7,500, then go home and don't contact your daughter or Craig. Don't answer their calls, don't respond to texts. Let them think everything's fine. Meanwhile, my team will move so fast they won't know what hit them. I wrote the check that afternoon with shaking hands. It was a huge risk, half of what I had left, but something in Thomas's eyes told me he meant what he said. He was going to win. Over the next 3 days, Thomas and his team moved like a military operation. They subpoenaed bank records, interviewed Patricia at my bank, obtained my medical records to prove I had no cognitive impairments, and filed an emergency petition with the Philadelphia County Court of Common Pleas. The petition requested immediate revocation of Craig's power of attorney, a freeze on all accounts that had received funds from my accounts, and a temporary restraining order preventing further transfers. The key, Thomas explained during one of our meetings, is proving that power of attorney was never meant to enrich them. It's a fiduciary duty. They were supposed to act solely in your best interests. Every withdrawal has to benefit you, and we're going to show that not a single cent benefited you. His investigators discovered Craig had used my money to lease a BMW, pay for a Hawaiian vacation, and fund extensive home renovations, all documented through credit card statements and bank records. Jennifer, it turned out, had also been quietly billing her personal expenses to accounts Craig controlled under my name. The court hearing was scheduled for the following Tuesday at 10 a.m. Thomas advised me firmly, "Don't tell them anything. Don't warn them. They'll find out when the sheriff serves them papers." That happened on Monday night. I know because my phone started ringing at 6:17 Tuesday morning. Jennifer, then Craig, then Jennifer again, then 3 more calls in rapid succession. Each call went to voicemail. I listened to none of them. By 8 a.m., I'd received 15 calls and a dozen text messages. The texts grew increasingly desperate. "Mom, we need to talk right now. Please answer your phone. This is serious. I can't believe you're doing this to your own daughter." I deleted everyone without responding. That morning, I dressed in my best navy blue suit, the one I'd worn to Paul's funeral 6 years ago, pearl earrings, low heels, hair neatly styled. I looked at myself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. She looked strong, determined, unbreakable. Thomas met me in the courthouse lobby at 9:30. "Ready?" he asked. "I've never been more ready for anything in my life." We walked into the courtroom together. Jennifer and Craig were already there, seated next to Richard Holloway and another attorney I didn't recognize. The moment Jennifer saw me, her face drained of all color. Craig's jaw tightened, his hands clenching into fists on the table. The judge, Honorable Patricia Morrison, was a woman in her mid-60s, with steel-gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. She called the hearing to order and asked Thomas to present his petition. What followed was systematic destruction. Thomas laid out the evidence methodically, bank statements showing $87,000 in withdrawals, documentation proving I was fully competent, medical records, testimony from my doctor who stated I had no cognitive impairments whatsoever. Character witnesses Martha had arranged, including 2 former colleagues who testified about my sharp mind and perfect recall. Then he showed where the money went. Screenshots of Craig's BMW lease agreement, monthly payment $2,200 funded from my accounts, hotel and airfare receipts for a Hawaiian vacation, $12,000 charged to a credit card paid from my funds, contractor invoices for home renovations at Craig and Jennifer's house, $34,000 withdrawn directly from my savings. "Your Honor," Thomas said, his voice cutting through the courtroom, "not a single withdrawal benefited Mrs. Patterson, not one. This was theft disguised as financial management." Richard Holloway tried to defend his clients. He stammered through explanations about investment strategies and protective reallocation of assets. Thomas demolished every argument with documentation. "Mr. Holloway," Judge Morrison interrupted, her tone icy, "I've reviewed these transfers extensively. Money flowed directly from Mrs. Patterson's accounts to your client's personal accounts. It paid for luxury vehicles, vacations, home improvements. I don't see a single transaction that could remotely be construed as acting in Mrs. Patterson's best interests. Can you point to even one?" Richard had no answer. Judge Morrison turned her attention to Craig. "Mr. Brennan, you held a position of profound trust. Power of attorney is not a license to enrich yourself. Did you truly believe you were acting in Mrs. Patterson's best interests when you used her money to lease a luxury car?" Craig's face flushed red. "Your Honor, my mother-in-law is elderly. She doesn't understand modern financial—" "I understand perfectly well," I said. The words came out before I could stop them, but they needed to be said. The courtroom went absolutely silent. Judge Morrison nodded at me. "Please continue, Mrs. Patterson." I stood up slowly, Thomas beside me. "Your Honor, I spent 43 years as a registered nurse. I managed complex patient care, calculated medication dosages, made life or death decisions every single day. I raised 3 children, managed a household budget, and worked full-time for 4 decades. My husband and I saved every penny of that money through careful planning and sacrifice. My mind is sharp. I am not confused. I am not senile. What my daughter and her husband did wasn't protection or help. It was theft, pure and simple theft. And they did it because they thought I was too old, too weak, or too scared to stop them. You know what? If this story resonates with you, if you believe people deserve to stand up for themselves, no matter their age, please hit that subscribe button right now. I share these stories because we need to remind each other and the world that being older doesn't mean being powerless. We have voices, we have rights, and we will not be victims." Judge Morrison studied me for a long moment. Then she looked at her notes, looked at Craig and Jennifer, and made her ruling from the bench. "I'm granting the emergency petition in its entirety. Mr. Brennan's power of attorney is immediately and permanently revoked. All accounts remain frozen, pending a complete forensic accounting of where Mrs. Patterson's funds went. Mr. Brennan and Mrs. Brennan are hereby ordered to appear for depositions within 14 days. Furthermore, I'm ordering both defendants to show cause why they should not be held in contempt and why I should not refer this matter to the district attorney for criminal prosecution under Pennsylvania's elder abuse statutes." Criminal prosecution. Prison. Craig's face went white. Jennifer started crying. Judge Morrison wasn't finished. "Mrs. Patterson, you also have the right to pursue civil damages for emotional distress, breach of fiduciary duty, and financial exploitation. I encourage you to do so. This court does not take kindly to people who prey on their own family members." As we left the courtroom, Jennifer tried to approach me, her face streaked with tears. "Mom, please, we can work this out. We can talk." Thomas stepped between us smoothly. "Any and all communication goes through my office. Do not contact my client directly. If you do, I'll file for additional restraining orders." Outside the courthouse, autumn air crisp and clean, I took the deepest breath I'd taken in months. I could finally breathe again. Over the next month, Thomas's team did what they do best. The depositions revealed everything. Craig had gambling debts he'd hidden from Jennifer. The Hawaiian trip, the BMW, the renovations, all funded by my money. Jennifer had known but convinced herself it was justified because you were going to leave everything to me eventually anyway. That logic, that stunning, entitled, sociopathic logic, broke something in me that couldn't be repaired. But Thomas wasn't interested in my broken heart. He was interested in complete and total victory. He negotiated with Craig and Jennifer's attorneys, making absolutely clear that if they didn't settle immediately and in full, he would pursue criminal charges. Elder abuse in Pennsylvania carried up to 7 years in prison. Faced with prison time, they crumbled. Within 6 weeks, every single penny was returned to my accounts, plus $53,000 in damages, interest, and penalties. Thomas had insisted on the substantial damages. They need to feel this, he'd told me during negotiations. They need to understand there are consequences. Otherwise, they'll just do it to someone else. The settlement funds hit my account on a Thursday morning in late October. I was drinking coffee at my kitchen table when Patricia from the bank called to confirm the wire transfer. Mrs. Patterson, I wanted to personally let you know $140,000 just cleared into your account. Everything they took, everything they spent, plus damages. It's all there. $140,000. My money, my security, my future. All of it back. I called Thomas immediately. How did you make them pay so much? He laughed, genuinely pleased. I told them the alternative was Craig going to prison and Jennifer losing her nursing license. Yes, we discovered she's been skimming from her employer too, billing personal expenses to hospital accounts. The Pennsylvania Board of Nursing doesn't look kindly on that. Faced with both of them potentially going to prison and losing their careers, they found money they swore didn't exist. Craig's parents took out a second mortgage. They liquidated retirement accounts. They'll be paying this off for 10 years at least. Good, I thought savagely. Let them understand what it feels like to have your financial security ripped away. The final piece of the puzzle was securing my house and remaining assets. Thomas had the original power of attorney documents, reviewed by an independent legal ethics expert. That expert testified that Richard Holloway had violated multiple professional responsibility rules by drafting documents designed to benefit Craig rather than protect me. Richard Holloway lost his law license 3 months later. As for my estate planning, Thomas's firm drafted completely new documents, ironclad, unbreakable documents that left specific bequests to my son Michael, my daughter Susan, and several charities I care about. Jennifer's name appears nowhere in my will now, not as a beneficiary, not as an executor, nowhere. She made her choice. I made mine. I haven't spoken to Jennifer since that court hearing 7 months ago. She's tried everything, calling, texting, showing up at my house unannounced, even having Craig's mother call to plead their case. Thomas sent a formal cease and desist letter. Some relationships can't be repaired, some betrayals cut too deep to heal. My other children, Michael and Susan, were absolutely horrified when they learned what had happened. Michael flew in from Colorado immediately. Susan drove up from Virginia. Both of them have been checking in regularly, helping me feel less alone. But I've also made it clear that I don't need managing or monitoring. I'm fine on my own. I don't need protection. What I needed was justice, and I took it. 3 months after everything was settled, Martha and I were having lunch at our favorite bistro, a little Italian place downtown where they know our orders by heart. She raised her glass of iced tea toward me, her eyes bright with pride. To Diane Patterson, she said, the woman who proved that 72 just means you've had 7 decades to learn how to fight. I clinked my glass against hers, to refusing to be a victim, and to being gloriously, magnificently vindictive when necessary, Martha added with a grin. I laughed, really laughed, for the first time in months. As I drove home that afternoon, past trees blazing with autumn gold and crimson, I thought about Paul. I could almost feel him in the passenger seat, that solid presence I'd loved for 46 years. I could almost hear his voice. That's my Diane. Knew you had it in you. Just took the right push to bring it out. He would have been proud. Hell, I was proud of myself. My life now looks much like it did before all this happened. Quiet, simple, filled with church activities and garden work and lunches with friends. I still volunteer at the food pantry every Tuesday. I still tend Paul's roses, which are thriving. I still have coffee on my front porch in the mornings, watching the neighborhood come alive. But I carry myself differently now. There's steel in my spine that wasn't there before, forged in the fire of betrayal and hardened by the fight for justice. When people look at me, they don't just see a sweet elderly woman. They see someone who fought back and won. They see someone you don't want to cross. The money is safely in my accounts now, managed by a fiduciary financial advisor Thomas recommended, someone with actual credentials, legal obligations, and oversight. My house is mine, secured by legal documents that can't be twisted or manipulated. And most importantly, I have my dignity back, my self-respect, my power. Craig and Jennifer are still together, as far as I know. I heard through Michael that they're struggling badly financially. Craig's parents barely speak to them. The weight of what they did, the criminal investigation that was narrowly avoided, the professional consequences, the family rupture they caused, has started to sink in. Their marriage is reportedly strained. Craig apparently blames Jennifer for not controlling me. Jennifer blames Craig for the gambling debts that started this whole mess. I don't take pleasure in their suffering, but I don't regret causing it either. Actions have consequences. That's not cruelty or revenge. That's justice. That's the natural order of things being restored. Sometimes, late at night when the house is quiet, I wonder if Jennifer ever truly thinks about what she gave up. Not the money or the inheritance. Those are just things. I mean the relationship. She had a mother who loved her unconditionally, who would have helped her financially if she'd just been honest about Craig's gambling problems, who would have supported her through any difficulty. Instead, she chose deception. She chose theft. She chose to see me as a resource to be exploited, rather than a person to be valued. That was her choice, made deliberately and repeatedly over 14 months. And my choice was to stop her, to fight back, to refuse to be anyone's victim. The phone still sits on my kitchen counter. 7 months of silence from Jennifer. Occasionally, late at night, I wonder if I should feel guilty about that silence. Mother-daughter relationships are supposed to be forever, right? But then I remember sitting in that bank with Patricia, looking at $87,000 in unauthorized withdrawals. I remember Craig's smug face telling me I should be grateful they were stealing from me. I remember Jennifer's cold dismissal when I confronted her. No, I don't feel guilty. I feel free. If you're watching this, and something similar has happened to you, whether from family members, friends, caretakers, or anyone else who thought your age made you an easy target, please hear me clearly. You are not powerless. You are not too old to fight back. You are not obligated to accept mistreatment simply because it comes from people you love or people who claim to care about you. Get help. Find a lawyer. A real one. Not some strip mall attorney connected to the people exploiting you. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is wrong. And never ever let anyone convince you that protecting yourself is somehow selfish or mean or a betrayal of family loyalty. Taking care of yourself isn't selfish. It's survival. I'm 72 years old. I've buried a husband I loved more than life itself. I've raised 3 children, 2 who turned out wonderful and 1 who broke my heart. I've worked 4 decades in a demanding profession. I've survived a betrayal that could have destroyed me financially, emotionally, and spiritually, but here I am, still standing, still strong, still fighting, still absolutely refusing to be anyone's victim. That, more than the recovered money, more than the legal victory, more than anything else, is what matters. I didn't just get my money back. I got myself back. The version of me that I'd forgotten existed, the fighter, the survivor, the woman who refuses to go quietly into anyone's version of what an elderly woman should be. And that is the real victory.